It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. I'm the president of Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. You can find a link to my work at emailrevealer.com. You can also get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator, at emailrevealer.com. We also do asset searches, locates, adoption investigations, background reports, email tracing investigations, online infidelity investigation. You think your spouse is cheating on you, you give us their email address, we trace it back to online dating websites. Emailrevealer.com. Show's brought to you by getthetea.com. Life Change Tea. 55 years old. I cannot recommend this tea to you enough. Since I started drinking this tea every morning, first thing in the morning, about 10 weeks ago, I've been working out again. My complexion is better. My skin complexion is better. My digestion is better. I've lost a ton of weight, and I'm back working out like I was working out 5-10 years ago. Okay, I got this little hernia, so I stopped working out like I should have been. I use it as an excuse, really, because but every day now I'm out there swimming, I'm hiking, I'm riding my bike. I'm not stressing the hernia until I get it operated on. But definitely getthetea.com. Life Change Tea. It has really changed my life. You got to go to the website and at least check out the tea, and also too the other supplements and vitamins and herbs and stuff like that you can get at getthetea.com. Okay. Got a really interesting guest for you today. Chris Fields, who's a retired major from the Firefighter, and you may not have heard the name, you may not think you know who Chris Fields is, but you really do, because if you ever watched that iconic photo at the Oklahoma City bombing of the firefighter holding that poor little baby in his arms, that's Chris Fields, a hero, real hero. Mr. Fields, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm here this evening. How are you?
Great. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Tell the audience about, who is Chris Fields?
Oh, Chris Fields is a 53-year-old born and raised Oklahoman. Just retired, been retired for 1 year from the fire department after 31 years of service. Married for almost 31 years. Two sons, 25 and 19. And just living the retired life, or trying to live the retired life.
Yeah, and I know in your retired life you're starting this new thing called Armor Up.
Yes, sir. I'm involved with two other gentlemen, Sean Riley and Jay Dobbins, and it's we want to there's such a stigma out there with first responders and PTSD and the stigma about reaching out for help, and we're trying to. Matter of fact, one of our little hashtags we like to use is change the narrative, because that's we're losing first responders left and right, to suicides, and the ones we're not losing suicides, their lives are destroyed, they lose their families, they lose their career, and there's no need for it. 30 years ago that was the norm. Suck it up and go on down the road. Or that's the way we were brought up in the first responder world, but that's not the way it is anymore. And there's help out there, and they just have to know that it's okay to reach out.
Yeah, I'm about the same age as you. I'm 55 years old, and growing up, and even guys our age, you start self-medicating, you start drinking, you start
right.
You start taking it out on your family, walking around angry all the time, What kind of solutions have you found in your own life?
Well, I went to. It was funny. I dealt with some things after the bombing. I had some guilt about the photo, and the things that exposed Erin. Erin Almond is Bailey. Bailey's the little girl I was holding, and her mom Erin, of course, got exposed to a bunch of stuff, and and it's guilt I was putting on myself on things I had no control over. But I did find out through the past year on how strong your mind really is. It can, control you, whether that's good or bad. And I was dealing with all this guilt about, being the last one to hold her child and putting her through all this stuff that she was going through because people were seeing her, her dead child every time on newspaper stands and magazine racks. And so I dealt with that, but it was probably, 10 years after that before everything really came crashing down on me, and went and got the help I needed. And it's just a thing I've learned to accept. I've really learned I can't control, things that are out of your control. You can't let them weigh you down. And that was one of my biggest things. And then recognizing triggers, things that may take me back or try to take me back to those days.
I always try and use the analogy like when you get on an airplane. You're on the airplane. There's nothing you can do now. You know what I mean? You just got to ride it out to the end of the trip, man. Because all the worrying and fussing and crying ain't going to change a damn thing, So
that's right. I just read something today or yesterday about somebody saying we worry about things that haven't even happened yet. How can we even worry about, it hadn't even happened yet. So what's there even to worry about? It's kind of the same thing on the guilt deal stuff I was struggling with. It was stuff that I had no control over. So it was just, I had to learn to deal with that.
Yeah. The other thing they say too is that 90% of the things we worry about never happen.
Exactly. I have found that to be true.
And once you realize that and you put that in your head, you start looking back and you say, yeah, you're right. It never.
Exactly. You spend so much time preparing for the worst, right, and then it doesn't happen. You've wasted that time.
Right. Well, and also too, just it's draining on you. It's distracting. It puts you in a bad mood. All this kind of stuff we were talking about before. So tell us what happened that day. Tell us what happened that day when you woke up and what happened.
The day of the bombing.
Yeah.
Was just a normal Wednesday at the fire station. I just remember it was a Wednesday, April 19th, 1995. Our shift changes at 7 a.m. We do a 24-hour shift, but for 31 years, if I wasn't there at 6 a.m., they knew I was running late, so they would call me. I was just an early riser and get there. And so I'd been there since about 6 that morning, drinking coffee, talking with the other shift, and they left, and we started our morning routine. I think it was the yard maintenance day, and we were kind of getting stuff to go to the grocery store, and all of a sudden we felt the station shake, the windows rattled, and we felt it. We felt the percussion of the boom, and we thought a train had derailed because there was a train yard by my station I was at that time, and we went outside and saw the plume south of us downtown. And my station at the time was only like 13 or 14 blocks downtown, so we just self-dispatched. We knew we'd be on the call, so we self-dispatched ourselves down there. So I think with all the stations there in the downtown area did that when they felt it. So
now this was before the first World Trade Center bombing. This was before really anything was going on like that in this country. So did you think it was terrorism?
No, matter of fact, while we were en route, we were talking about one of the guys had the actual Oklahoma City bombing memorial now is inside an old building called the Water Resources Building that had some damage to it from the bombing. Well, at the time in 1995, they were doing a lot of remodeling on that building, steel girders and stuff. And one guy made a comment that he said, "I wonder if a welder's torch, did an acetylene that was just an explosion, And so we were just running everything through a natural gas leak. We just could, the thought of terrorism, and then on top of that, domestic terrorism never entered our mind.
Yeah, just imagine this is 1995. Imagine how much this world has changed, because right now it's be the first thing you think of,
Oh, it is crazy how much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter grew up, but she was born 2001. And she was born in 2000, but she was there for 2001 when the World Trade Center bombing. She doesn't she doesn't know a different world. She doesn't know a different world than what we grew up in.
That I know. I tell my boys, used to, I would be during the summer. I was out of the house at 7 or 8 a.m. and I didn't come back until sundown, and we could just do whatever we wanted to do and go where we want. And you just that life just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. And my daughter's 17 now, and a lot of the kids in her school don't know how to ride a bicycle. They don't know how to ride.
Well, a funny story. We were doing a tour at the station for some elementary kids.
Yeah.
And one of our Of course, all the new rigs, have power windows and all that kind of stuff. But we were in a trade-out rig that had, and the firefighter was opening the door and showing him the inside. And this little girl kept saying, "What is that?" He said, "What? Show me what you're talking about." She did not know what the handle was to roll the window down.
Well, sometimes when I gotta hire these kids, when I gotta hire these kids, 20 years old, to come in my office and do some work for me, I said, "Well, you gotta make some phone calls." They'll pick up the phone and say, "Is it supposed to sound like this?" They've never heard a dial tone on a telephone before.
Yeah. Now, if I need some technical help, I'm in. I'm okay. They know all that, but man, they don't. The basic it's just. I wonder if it's for my parents is different, it is for me, for my kids. I wonder if they see such a generational deal as I did. It's just crazy.
Now, did your sons grow up to become firefighters?
No, sir. Neither one of them. My oldest one, I think he might have had the drive to do it, but I don't know if he could even pass the seat. He's had double knees. He's blown out both of his ACLs playing basketball. So he's into he works for a local news station, and he's graduated from college, getting ready to get married. And then my youngest one, he loves the adrenaline rush of the firefighting and all that. But there's not a firefighter you can't ask. I'll tell you, 80% of our calls are first aid EMS calls anymore. And he just told me, he said, I don't think I can do the blood and the guts and the vomit and all that, Dad. And I said, well, then you don't want to get into it. I'd rather you admit it and know it now than to get on the job for a year or two and then quit,
Right.
So they've just chosen different paths, which is, on one hand, I do have some friends whose kids are firefighters, and I'm glad for them. But, there is always that little bit of worry. I mean, anything can happen to anybody on any day, I know, but it increases your risk when you're doing things like that for a living.
I could imagine. So now, when you show up at the Murrow building, have you ever showed up at a call and saw destruction like that before in your life?
Oh no. We've made some cars into houses, and we've but never, not to see 9 stories, pancake down like that, and that crater that was out in front of the building where the truck and the bomb went off was just. It's easy for me to say it's something I'll never see in person again in my lifetime, so.
Hopefully. Now, could you still see remnants of the truck?
No, it's funny. Of course, at the time we didn't know it was a truck, but there was a little piece where we parked our rig at. There was a little piece of the axle. Come to find out, just through later hearsay, that it was a piece of the evidence they picked up, but it was a piece of the axle from the truck, and we were a good block away. We parked a block away, and there was parts of the truck laying in the street down there.
Now, after you're there for a little while, all the other responders, you must have started getting wind that, hey, this is a terrorist, and that there could be other bombs and things like that, right?
The first time we found out that it was any kind of explosive device was they evacuated the building at about, we'd probably been there an hour maybe, and they were it came over the radio that they had found a second explosive device. Of course, now you got to remember, communications weren't like they are now. As far as radio traffic, everybody was stepping all over everybody. Instant command system was real new, and so it was just kind of a little bit of chaos there at first. But they said everybody needs to evacuate the building. They found another explosive device. We were like, what do you mean another explosive device? So we didn't even know until then, and that turned out to be a dummy device up on the 9th floors where the ATF was, and it was just some displays they had sitting out. It was just a dummy device that somebody thought was an actual explosive device. So that's when we first found out that it had any kind of bomb. And of course, immediately, everybody goes into Middle Eastern involvement.
Now, these dummy devices, they were up on the 9th floor. How were you guys able to get up to the 9th floor?
Well, if you have to Google up and see pictures of the building.
Yeah.
It took out like the center, and part of the sides went down, but there were still people up on the 6th and 7th floors. You can see them being rescued down from aerial ladders and that kind of stuff. Where part of the floor, it was just like it looked like somebody. Like you had a cake sitting there,
yeah,
and somebody took a bite from the edge, and just took a bite right into the middle, how it kind of leaves partial sides, like a V cut, like a wedge out of a piece of cheese.
Sure.
That's kind of what it was like. It was like a wedge taken out of a piece of cheese. It left some of the sides where people were still up on the floors. There were some people that said they were sitting at their desk, and when the explosion happened, the person that was sitting across from them was gone, and they were still sitting at their desk on the 6th or 7th floor.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And they must have been like in shock, deaf, everything going on in there. So, in order to access them on those higher floors, though, you had to use ladders, and you couldn't use elevators or staircase, right?
You could use the outside. The stairwells were on one side were operable, so you could use them. But then they were also using aerial ladders from the outside to get to where they could.
Now, what about, has policy changed since then? Because today, would they allow you to go into a building in that kind of condition?
I think they would on the initial. I think it would have been quicker to grab control of it. There was a lot of organized chaos, I guess, for lack of a better term, because you had the police doing their thing, you had the fire doing their thing, you had the ambulance doing their thing. So it would have been. Yes, we still would have been allowed. I think even more so today, because we are, so much more of the USAR stuff is trained, and we are Oklahoma City does have a task force now, and so I think they would, but it would have been a lot more organized, and things just would have been organized better. Because we had no, one lady that ended up being killed, Rebecca Anderson. She was a nurse doing what she thought was right. She ran in there to try to help people. She got hit by a piece of falling concrete, and it killed her. And so I think there was just really no control of the building. So I think we still would be allowed, but there'd be a lot more control of the building.
Amazing. Yeah, like in New York, because I'm from New York City, and my partner was NYPD Harbor Aviation. In fact, he rescued those people off of the Twin Towers, the first bombing in '93. They in the helicopters. Oh, yeah. And wow. But nowadays, when there's something, a big thing, 15 minutes later, they're standing around drinking coffee. They got that scene under control. It's like a whole other world.
It is.
Yeah. So now, I guess what happened was there was a daycare center in the building.
There was a called America's Kids. There was a daycare inside the federal building. Of course, now there's a confusion. It was the Alfred P. Murrah building. I'd been on the job 10 years at the time in the downtown area. I'd never heard it referred to as a federal building. We had a federal courthouse behind it. So when it first came in, they said the federal building. A lot of us were thinking the federal house. But I guess this was called the federal building because it housed so many federal offices like HUD and, ATF and Social Security Administration and stuff like that. Anyway, so yeah, there was a daycare on the second floor, and that's where 19 of the, I think 16 of the 19 children that were killed, I may be wrong, 16 or 17 were in the daycare. And the other one just happened to be in the building with their parents.
Oh, that's horrific. Did you actually have to witness that?
We saw some. We couldn't. There was a lot of people that couldn't be extricated at the time, and a few were kids. The only one, like I say, that I was really actually handled was Bailey in that photo.
Bailey Almond, and. Well, you know what? We're coming up to a little commercial break. Why don't we get into that whole part of the discussion when we return? So we're with Chris Fields. He retired a major from the Oklahoma City Fire Department, and he's working on this thing called Armor Up to help other people, victims of not victims, but people experiencing PTSD, and trying to help people cope with that and do. And now a word from our sponsors.
Hi folks, Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of Yee! We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the tea, your best defense.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing and distribution, and much, much more. Now you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with Chris Fields, former Major Chris Fields of the Oklahoma City Fire Department. Was there in the Murrow building, and he's the one in that iconic photo holding that little baby Bailey Almond. How did you come into contact with little Bailey?
We had gotten an assignment to go to the south side of the building and start, searching around in there. And as we were walking to the south side of the building, a gentleman, at the time I didn't know he was a police officer, he was just in street clothes, but a gentleman said, "I have a critical infant." And of course, at that time, it's a little more prevalent now, police and first aid, but at that time, police didn't have much first aid training, if any. It just wasn't done back then, not in Oklahoma City anyway. We were all first responders and that kind of stuff, or EMTs. And so I just said, and I don't know why. My mom says God's hand was in it, but I just said, "Here, I'll take her." And he gave me Bailey, And I don't even know if he had checked for any signs of life. I think he either scooped her up out of the building or somebody handed him to, I think they were handing them out. So they, he handed her to me, and I immediately checked her for, any signs of life, and had to clear some insulation like stuff out of her throat. Oh. And she had a little slight little open skull fracture. And of course, I didn't find any signs of life, so I took her right across the street. The ambulance was over there, and some paramedics. And same thing, I just told them I had a critical infant, and the paramedic was down on the ground working on a lady, and his ambulance was full. Had 2 people in the ambulance. He had stretchers on the ground that were full, and I remember him looking up at me saying, "Hold on just a second, I'm gonna get a blanket. We're gonna put that baby on the ground." And that's when now that I know, looking back at the photo when the photo was taken, I'm standing there, just looking at her, waiting for him to get a blanket on the ground, and that's when I was just thinking, I can't imagine how somebody's world is getting ready to be turned upside down, And of course, at that single moment, I'm focused on Bailey, not even the same ready at the magnitude. It was only like 9:30 in the morning, so it's still a long day ahead of a lot more of that. But that's how I came to be photographed holding Bailey.
And then how did it come? How did you find out that your picture was going to be used in a national magazine?
I was at we got back to the station that night about 11, I think, is when we finally got released and went back to duty. And our chief dispatcher, a guy I'm good friends with, Harvey Weathers, he called, and another guy answered the phone, and he said, well, hold on, Harvey, let me get one of the captains, because captains wore red helmets. I was a captain then before I became major. But anyway, I got on the phone, and Harvey said, "Hey, Chris, did you carry a baby out of the building?" I said, "No, Harvey, I didn't." I said, a gentleman at the time, still not knowing Sergeant Avery was a police officer, I said, "No, a gentleman handed me a baby." And he said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Well, I think there's a photo. I think this photo is you." And I said, "Well, I don't know. Let me ask the other 2 captains." I was at a large station. We had 3 captains there. So I asked the other 2, and they said, "No, we didn't, hold a baby." Or I said, "Harvey, I guess it's me." And he said, "Well, Chris, I know it's you. I just want to confirm it." He said, "The AP has faxed this photo to us, and they want us to identify the firefighter in the photo." And he said, "I know it's you." He said, "I'm getting ready to call the fire chief or the PIO and just tell them what the AP wants and it's you, and go ahead and identify you." And I said, "Okay," and he said, and this guy said, "This picture's going worldwide." And I thought, oh, wow, okay. Yeah. So when I hung up, all the guys were kind of just listening in, and they said, "What's that about?" I said, "I don't know, boys." I said, "But apparently I'm going worldwide tomorrow." Not having a clue, because at that time I still hadn't seen the photo. I didn't know when it was taken, I didn't, so I really, when I said that, I was just kind of, being a smart aleck, saying, "I guess I'm going worldwide." How.
And plus, you must have been so exhausted. You must have been so exhausted. Yeah, you must have been so exhausted. Like, who cares?
Yeah. So we went to bed. We made a house fire during the middle of the night, and then we got up about 6 o'clock. And when I got up, one guy had the Daily Oklahoman had a little. It was on a little inset picture on the Daily Oklahoman paper, and then another guy came in and tossed down the USA Today, and one guy, of course, you didn't have social media like we have now, as far as, Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So we just started watching the news, and they were just showing this iconic, photo, and they were just showing, Hong Kong, Singapore, just all over where this picture was being circulated.
And so how did this change your life?
Oh, wow. It, like I said, one of the main things I dealt with was, all the cops and firefighters were all the same. It's cops do a little more individual work just because of the nature of their job. But, firefighting is such a team effort, and everybody's involved. And so I really struggled with the guilt of being singled out when, I'm sure I'm not the only one that was, carrying a baby that day, or, checking for signs of life and somebody already being deceased. But so I struggled with that. And I'll stop there and say, but one of the things that helped me with that was I had outstanding moral support from all the guys and girls on the fire department. I mean, it was it was overwhelming when I was doing some of these interviews and them telling me, hey, man, you're doing a good job. We're glad it's you representing the fire department. So that helped. But then I was dealing with the guilt of being in this photo. Again, like I said, the mind is so powerful that I knew it wasn't like I stopped and posed for if I didn't have any control over it. But yet I felt the guilt for all the stuff it was putting on Erin, which is Bailey's mom. And then, finding out that the guilt of finding out, that I was the last one to hold her child, which that was just
mm-hmm.
I felt like I robbed her of that and then put the pressure, So on one hand, I'm struggling with that. And on the other hand, I have, people saying, hey, so-and-so once, I got hooked up with John Hanson. He was our public information officer. You don't feel like you can say no to interviews because then you're the fireman that won't, it's just kind of one of those danged if you do, danged if you don't situations, And so the pressure of all that I let kind of build up on me. And so it did. It took a toll. But being on the fire department that time, being a first responder and being around the people, I never showed it. I was still happy-go-lucky on that fire station, full of energy, playing the game, Inside, I was just, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. There wasn't anybody to talk to. I mean, they tried to give us people to talk to, but it was so, PTSD back then was, I don't know if it was PTSD back then. It was just dealing with a traumatic event.
Shell shock, they would call it, things like that. Yeah.
Right. And for the limited amount of things we'd heard about PTSD back then, it was all, Vietnam vets and military. It was just something we didn't talk about in the fire service, and so it was just stuff I suppressed and went on about my job. Fearing that if I did let them know it was affecting me, that they may say, well, hey, we can't have you on the job if you can't handle it. That was a fear you live with. And so
when really it's the other way around, because if you're exposed to something that traumatic, and it doesn't affect you, then you're the person to be. You got to watch out for that guy. That's the guy who, that's the serial killer, man. That's the guy you got to watch out for.
That is, and like I said, now that I've spoken to a few of our rookie classes and stuff. They've asked me to come speak some of the off, and that's the kind of thing I've told them. I said, hey, if you're the guy that can do this job and it not affect you, and then if you're that strong, be there for the person that does need to talk to somebody. Evidently that's your role. If I've had people say, well, you can't take this job personal. Really? How do you do what we do and not take things personal? How are you supposed to be trying to save this person's life and you don't, and you not take it personal? I just don't know how you do that. I'm not very good at that.
Yeah. Now, Erin Almond, did you get it? You obviously you met her. You got to meet her, right, and get to know her.
Yeah, we are kind of like a. She's married, has 2 kids since then, and of course I've only had one son at the time. We've got another one now, and so we've just all kind of grown up together. She was 11. She was only a 21 or 22-year-old single mom at the time that happened. And the day before, April 18th, was Bailey's first birthday. Oh. So it was it hit her pretty hard all at once. And but a reporter set up a meeting between us because she wanted to meet me and Sergeant Avery. And she just wanted to tell us thank you, which you talk about taking you to your knees. Here you're the big, tough firefighter and police officer, and you got a 21-year-old single mom thanking you. And you're thinking, what is she thanking us for, And I always felt guilty because a lot of people didn't know Bailey was deceased. And they would say, this is the firefighter. What a heroic effort. He rescued, and I had to say, no, I didn't rescue her. So I dealt with that stigma of being called this hero, and when she wasn't alive, I didn't save her. But when you talk to Erin says, yes, you did rescue her. She said, you rescued her from that building. You didn't save her life. You couldn't save her life. She was dead in the building, but you rescued her from that building. I knew her fate. early, and Erin's main concern, she was worried about all these people that had to wait, 3 and 4 days, to find out. So that's the one thing she wanted to do was thank me and Sergeant Avery for, and she thanked me for the way I was holding Bailey. She said she could tell that I was a father that had kids and that that she was she was taken care of. So that's how we met, and we've just I've been kind of like a big brother ever since. We've been to each other's kids' birthday parties and graduations, and so we're still friends today.
My God, what a story, man! Now, what about what was she doing in the building that day? What business did she have there?
She lived. There's Regency Towers. They were some apartment condos across the street downtown, and a lot of people that lived there or that worked downtown had their kids in daycares there because they were by where they worked. So there was actually another daycare right across the street in a YMCA building. There was a daycare there. So she had dropped Bailey there off there for the daycare. So, and she just worked 3 or 4 blocks away at an insurance company.
Okay, so I always had the impression that it was just people who worked in the building that they kept their kids there.
No, it was it was an open daycare.
Okay,
so
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So then, what happened with the rest of your career? Did this affect you with that?
Well, like I say, I rocked along for. And it's funny we should be talking about this today because I was just looking at some stuff today. I was rocking along till about 2005. Playing the game, being the good guy that can handle everything, and we were going to put a pool in here at the house. We do a little add-on and put a pool in, and I had to bust out some concrete. And this is when after going to a couple of years of therapy, now I know what a trigger is. We were out there, and it started to rain while I was busting this concrete out. Well, a lot of people don't know that early evening of the bombing, it started raining. There was that wet concrete dust smell. And it always stuck with me. And I had noticed it at times over the years. I thought, God, it smells like the bombing. Or smells. And I was out there with a jackhammer busting out this concrete, and started raining, and I caught that smell. And it wasn't like it. I dropped to my knees, and I thought, God, that smells just like that day. And I thought about that the rest of the day. And, looking, I could notice that's kind of where everything started. It wasn't like sudden, but it was gradually. I was becoming a little more distant from my family, a little more isolated, a little more, like I said, I'm not a heavy drinker. I'm a social drinker even today, but, I got to noticing that, well, instead of, I tell you what, I'm going to fall asleep quick, so let's just have a 2 extra Jack and Cokes now, or, let's, that. I started kind of getting into that, and then started disconnecting from my family. Coached both my boys in Little League. Started not being interested in that, and just I could feel myself just detaching myself from my family and isolating, which and lived like that. Once that came back, I lived like that for another 5 years. It was 2010 before I went and got before I sought out any counsel on anything to do with PTSD or, traumatic memories or anything like that. So it was 2010 when I went started going to counseling and everything, and was diagnosed with PTSD. And by this time, I was, me and my wife were separated, and I was living in an old apartment by myself. But on the outside, I was still the happy-go-lucky guy. This is what I wanted. This is the course I have picked. So everything was great on the outside, and on the inside, man, I was just, I was crumbling. And like I said, after going to counseling, I found that it wasn't just, that wet concrete dust smell triggered it from the bombing, and it wasn't just the photo. It was years of stuff of just, you're always, like we were talking the way we were brought up in our generation, you're just told, suck it up, be tough, Well, when that suck it up, every time I had to suck it up, the its were a series of traumatic events that I had never really emotionally, processed. And I don't know if we're up on a commercial break. I was going to go into, Will I have time?
I'm going to make you my producer. Perfect producing the show. You're doing great, man. Thank you so much. It's great stuff. Not great stuff, but it really is.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's hard, and it's educational too for the audience, and it's really good to hear this. And the thing is, you know, even if you're not out there drunk driving and crashing your car and, you know, attempting suicide, just the loss of those years of happy, productive, normal years this is something that we need to work for. You know, the life is short. You're 55 years old yourself. You're 50. You know, life is short.
Yeah,
you know,
I totally agree.
You can't miss this time, yeah, especially when you got kids. We'll be right back with more of Chris Fields, Major Chris Fields from the Fire Department of Oklahoma City. And now a word from our sponsors.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshore research networking, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions, mobile responsive designs. Now, I've personally worked with Subash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubhashTechnosis.com. You can find a link to Subash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also AwakeRadio.us.
People are waking up. They're standing up to those pushing pesticides and GMOs as safe alternatives for a starving world. What a bunch of crap! I tell you, I'd rather eat dirt. So I drink Life Change Tea. It's an herbal drink, cleansing my body of toxic sludge and nasty chemicals, and of course, ridding the intruders that are hidden in my so-called food. And by the way, Life Change Tea is non-GMO and organic. No fillers, no yuck. Just a great defense against you-know-what. May the supplement force awaken you. Don't fall to the dark side. Sorry. I went to the movies last night. Anyway, enough said. How do you get that herbal drink and change your life? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. You will awaken. You will get stronger, and you might even lose a bit of weight. So awaken to Life Change Tea and the many one-of-a-kind supplements at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. May the supplement force be with you.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99. You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report member section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you can get a copy of my book. I want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests. You can find William Ramsey, who's an excellent author, at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with Chris Fields, Oklahoma City Fire Department, retired. The guy in that iconic photo holding that little baby Bailey almond. Chris, let me ask you a question now. You were there at the scene, and you lived there after you lived through the trial and through the investigation and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. What do you make when you hear these theories that John Doe number 2 and McVeigh had help, and the Nichols talking about all these things? Well, the government was involved, and so what do you make of all that? And you and your friends on the department.
I won't speak for all of them, but I know in my circles that we think they got exactly who was involved. I think it was Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. I think I think they were, everybody tries to scapegoat it, some other way, or, I listen to some people with their theories, but they're the same ones that have a, anti-government theory on everything, So personally, I think they got who they were supposed to get, and I think one of them got what he was supposed to get. And I guess they made the other one a deal so he would, tell all on McVeigh. So I'm like most people, I try not to give him too much thought, but it does pop up when the anniversaries come around, because of course his name gets mentioned, and they show little snippets on the news and stuff. So I just try to I've just never been a big conspiracy theorist guy. Maybe if I sat down and read and looked, I might. Maybe that's why I don't.
Right. Well, yeah, you don't want to go through that stuff, because that could be another whole depressing situation as well.
Exactly. So
then how'd you come out after the therapy?
It was the thing that helped me most, Ed, was, and it's the point that me and Jay and Sean, the other two guys I'm working with, are trying to get across to people, is when I finally went to a place out in California where it's a West Coast post-traumatic place, and it's nothing but first responders that have been through it. And of course, there's also clinicians there also, but it's a small group. There's probably I was there for a week, and I think there's 6 or 7 maybe, what they call clients, I guess, and then each one of you has a peer counselor, which is, another first responder that's been where you've been. And that's always nice when somebody can say, I know what you're talking about, and they really do, and which in turn, hearing them say, I know what you're saying, been there, done that, felt that. And yes, this person here, this clinician that's done nothing but work with first responders all their life, they can help. So, was I really just going to go straight to a clinician? No, I did try that. They sent me to our fire department chaplain I went to a family counselor at first who knew nothing about, PTSD or knew nothing about first responders. Their deal was, it's the bombing. There's going to be a lot of y'all struggle with this. It's strictly the bombing. And I probably, if I just would have dealt with that, I probably would have been good for a while, but I think I still would have ended up where I did because of all the other stuff that I had suppressed over the years, and not all of it's fire department related. Some of it's personal life issues, and some of it's, 3 years on the job. We make a house fire, and we go over on the second alarm, and there's one of my mentors, and the reason I got on the fire department, he's dead. Guy I went to Ricky school with, he's dead. Killed, 3 guys in a house fire. And I got 3 years on the job. We didn't talk to anybody. We cried and hugged our brothers at the funeral, and we were there for everybody, but we didn't sit around and talk about it. You didn't do that. You had to suck it up. And I was assigned our PIO for a while I was on the job. And I have to make one of my good friends, him and his 12-year-old son were killed in a head-on car wreck by drunk drivers. Well, once they found out it was off-duty firefighter that was killed, of course, the media. So I'm doing PIO interviews about one of my, good friends and his 12-year-old son that were killed. We didn't have anybody to talk to about it. We sucked it up. It's just that theme that's just what you do. And so there was just a series of events on the fire department that and like I say, in personal life that just, and you got to talk about it. And like they say, the thing that helped me most was seeing other first responders that have been through it and come out on the other side.
Now, what about after the Oklahoma City bombing, after the Merce building bombing? And we know how it affected you, but what about your buddies in the department? Because back in New York, after the World Trade Center bombing, every cop I knew and every firefighter I knew was just showing up to work drunk. They were drunk every day, showing up, and this was like common, amongst everyone. When they were working there, when they showed up to work the rest of that month before they brought in the iron workers, everyone was just self-medicating. Was that kind of stuff going on over there?
Yeah, I don't think it was as prevalent as maybe there. I mean, I don't know, but I know we had ours. We did have one Oklahoma City cop commit suicide.
Yeah.
Shortly after the bombing, and I think I was talking to our fire department chaplain one day, and like he told me, I can't remember the number of divorces over the next 10 years amongst firefighters. I mean, it's a high rate anyway between amongst first responders and divorces, but it was astronomical, the amount of divorces. And the sad thing, I mean, I've still got buddies today that I talk to every now and then, been retired. I've been retired 5-6 years, and they'll tell me they still have nightmares. I had a guy the other day tell me, it was since the anniversary was just last month, he texted me something and said, "Hey, man, just checking on you, yada yada." And at the end of his deal, he says, "I wish I could get that day out of my mind." Here we are 23 years later, and he still texts me messages about he wish he could get that stuff out of his mind. But he's at a point where I was, where he don't want to deal with it. He can handle it. He just can't get it out of his mind, and that's just the way he'll live with it.
It's a trauma, like a gunshot wound trauma. You just can't just say, "Well, I'm going to ignore this. It's going to go away."
Well, and that's what I try to tell you. It's like to me, it's an injury. It's a brain injury. It's like a knee injury or a ankle, or you have surgery, you rehab it, and you can go back to work. And it's the same thing with this, man. You can look at me. I went back and did another 6 or 7 years after I left, and got PTS counseling and all that, and I came back and had 5 or 6 more of the best years of my fire department life.
And did you also use medication, or just talk therapy?
Just talk therapy. I've never been a medication guy. I think because I feel like I have an addictive personality. Like if something works, I'm gonna stick with it. Like if I'm wearing a blue shirt and I'm in Vegas and I'm good at the black, I'm wearing a blue shirt every time. That's just me. So I think if I'm having to take something to feel better, it just scares me, the thought of feeling like I have to take stuff. So I was fortunate. I know some people need it and it does help. So I'm glad it's there. But for me, it was just never an option.
Yeah, I think sometimes too it can have the reverse effects too. It can. It can cause a lot of the side effects on these depression drugs is suicide and stuff.
Gosh.
And so if you can avoid that stuff, really try to avoid it.
Yeah.
So we're almost out of time. Now, what do you want to leave us with?
I just want to leave everybody with, and it's not first responders only. That's another thing I usually try to say, because a lot of times we're speaking to first responders, but there may be somebody there that's helping set the event up. They're not a first responder, but post-traumatic stress is not just for first responders. It's any traumatic event in anybody's life. And what I've learned, and trust me, I was the guy that carried the fake smile for 20-something years and thought I could handle it. I'm telling you, and you will be shocked. I've always said that. I was shocked when I finally reached out how many people were reaching back to help me. So that's just kind of my message I want to get out there, that it's to erase the stigma, change the narrative of it. If you need help, reach out. And it doesn't mean therapy. It doesn't mean going away. I mean, for some people it might, but it may just be talking to somebody. Find somebody you can talk to, a friend you can confide in that helps you, So that's my message, is don't don't let that event or a series of events just control your life. It'll bring you down.
Yeah, you can waste so many years of your life. And Chris, I really want to thank you, because I know, like I've interviewed a lot of people that have been through trauma, And I know when you have this conversation on the air, you're kind of like, you're sort of like more attentive. But after the show, you know what I mean? Like, right. It's a drain on you. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. And I do believe that you're going to help many, many people listening to you here. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I truly appreciate it.
Chris, you got anything if you want to promote, give me a call. We'll put you right on the air, okay?
Okay, sounds great, Ed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good day.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Oh, boy, they got Chris Fields, man, a former firefighter there at the Murrah building, Oklahoma City bombing. Really nothing to promote. Just wants to come tell the story. He's got this thing coming on, Armor Up, he's doing with this Jay Dobbin, who was this cop who was in the Hells Angels, undercover Hells Angels. I tried to book him. And he says, hey, I have my buddy Chris come on there. So Chris was nice enough to come on at the last minute for us. Thank you so much. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subhash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshore research networking, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions, mobile responsive designs. Now, I've personally worked with Subhash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubhashTechnosis.com. You can find the link to Subhash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also AwakeRadio.us.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99.
Hi, folks. Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Get the Tea, your best defense.
You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com. Every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report member section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you can get a copy of my book. I want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests. You can find William Ramsey, who's an excellent author, at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
confirmed to the Washington Post that it paid $150,000.
Welcome back to the Opperman Report. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Chris Fields, first responder there in Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. If you enjoy the show, remember our members section, OppermanReport.com. Join up, become a member. There's exclusive content, exclusive shows that you won't find in the on YouTube or Spreaker or iHeart. By the way, if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's Opperman Report. And on YouTube, it's Ed Opperman. Just Google Ed Opperman on YouTube. Get the all of our old shows, but not the shows that are in the member section. Those are exclusive to members only. And I'll give you a deal. Email me at oppermanreport@gmail.com. I'll give you 13 months for $60. Good night.